This is the nature of things. We keep packing on the pounds. But why is it so hard to lose them?
We don't have the magic pill for obesity.
Researchers are looking for clues to what controls our weight.
Oh my goodness.
And what they're finding may surprise you.
My motto is that my microbes made me do it.
Microbes, tiny creatures that surround us.
There are more microbes in this handful of soil than there are stars in the whole universe.
Microbes even live inside us, especially in our guts.
People thought about bacteria as enemies.
But can our gut bugs be our allies?
To our microbes, they're absolutely crucial in what makes someone lean or obese.
As we fight the battle of the bulge, should we learn to trust our gut?
You're kind of hungry.
In my years as a geneticist, I developed quite a gut. Sitting all day at the microscope did me in. Now I try to exercise and eat well. But I'm intrigued by some new research in microbiology. It could lead to a major rethink about our obesity epidemic. Edmonton's Adriana O'Regan is trying to solve a mystery. Despite all the steps she's taken to battle obesity, she's baffled by one simple question.
Why I haven't lost any more weight. I started struggling with my weight when I hit puberty. And then I just kept on getting bigger. I ended up about 330 pounds or so. Never had a boyfriend, didn't even try, just decided that nobody wanted to date the fat girl.
In her mid-20s, Adriana was determined to lose the fat girl label and the excess pounds.
I cut out the junk food, I was going to the gym, and I still wasn't losing the weight.
The fact is that out of 20 people who start a diet and exercise program, 19 will fail. Hey, Adriana, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Obesity expert Arya Sharma believes most doctors are just as mystified by their patients' weight loss struggles.
The help that most patients can expect when they go to see their family doctor about their weight is eat less, move more, which research tells us is about as effective as telling a patient with depression, you know what, you just need to cheer up. But here you've got somebody who goes to the gym 4 times a week, who measures every calorie that they eat, and is 150 pounds overweight. So what explains that difference? It's not simply calories in and out.
I've been told that it's simply a case of lack of willpower, of eat less, exercise more. And the more and more I research it, the more I realize that's rubbish. Okay, ladies, these are the results of your body composition scan we've done.
Geneticist Tim Spector has long wondered why some of us tip the scales while others stay slim, even on similar diets. He's been testing identical twins like Irene and Angela, who share their DNA, but not their waistlines.
Actually, Angela had twice as much belly fat internally than you did. There's a difference. There are some people who are genetically susceptible to obesity. But we also know that behind that, there's something else we really haven't thought of before. The missing piece of the puzzle is something that's inside us. And that's something that influences not only how we eat, what we eat, but also how we get the energy from our food, and that is our microbes. These are the creatures that we evolved from, and these tiny microbes can't be seen with the naked eye. When you do see them, you see this huge range of life that you couldn't really imagine. They're in every possible shape and form, from little spirals to little blobs to ones with little wavy heads. Even just in our bodies, we're carrying 100 trillion of them. We can't live without them, and we're only just beginning to glimpse this tiny bit of what they can do.
These incredible organisms and the environment they live in make up our inner world, called the microbiome.
The science of the microbiome is one of the hottest areas in biology. There's a huge amount of promise here, but it will take a lot more work for that promise to become reality.
Ed Yong has written more about microbes than just about any science journalist.
I find the science of the microbiome very subversive. I love the idea that these tiny, invisible organisms can have such a huge impact on our lives.
Our lives and our health. Our bodies are a haven for bacteria. They're on our skin, in our mouths, and most important, in our guts. Those microbes play a starring role in our immune system. Yet in the fight against disease, modern medicine has cast them all as the villains.
People thought about bacteria as enemies. We were almost on a permanent war footing. We need to understand how to coexist with bacteria rather than just treating them as antagonists.
That let you gears up around the corner?
Yeah, just on that flat right there.
Deep in the Badlands of southwest Texas, anthropologist Jeff Leach is on the hunt,
We just need about 8 or 10 of them.
hoping to learn more about the link between diet and microbes.
I'm hungry. I'm out here today with my friend Greg, looking for a plant that's been feeding the tiny little microbes in the Native American stomachs for thousands of years. These flat rocks, man.
He's trying to discover a lost civilization, the beneficial bacteria that once lived in our gut.
So this is what we've been looking for, this particular species of agaves.
Leonard.
So this is basically pure dietary fiber. One of the things that we do is we want to know how it affects our microbiomes.
The link between our diet, our microbes, and our weight was first established less than a decade ago in a U.S. study that made headlines around the world.
This is one of my favorite studies on the microbiome.
They showed that humans and mice that were obese have different communities of bacteria in their guts than those who are lean.
The researchers actually transplanted human microbes into mice.
They took bacteria from obese people and lean people and put them into germ-free mice that had no microbes themselves. And the mice that get the obese bacteria put on more weight than those that get the lean bacteria.
In fact, even though the mice with microbes from fat people ate less, they gained more weight. Now there was conclusive proof that gut bacteria don't just signal obesity, they may actually cause it.
That was the killer result. That was the thing that really made people sit up and think the microbes are actually doing something important.
Our gut microbiome is like a garden. We all have a soil, which is the environment of the gut. We all have plants we want to grow, which are our microbes. And there are good ones, which are healthy microbes, and there are bad ones, which we might call weeds. In order to nurture the good ones, we need a soil that has great richness and variety.
Like a rainforest in our digestive tract, our microbiome is an ecosystem teeming with gut flora that have a specific role to play. Some produce nutrients or vitamins. Others break down food and convert calories into energy. Scientists are discovering that having a wide range of species is key.
So say you're allergic to orchids, and so you remove them forever from the rainforest. That can have a big knock-on effect on the rest of the community, so that the insects don't work, they don't pollinate, and so you get other species taking over. That rainforest can change in very unhealthy ways very rapidly. We know definitely that obese people, in all the studies done, on average, have a less diverse, a less rich microbiome than lean people.
I have colleagues who work in the jungles of Costa Rica looking at soil, and I've got colleagues who are looking at the ocean off the coast of Hawaii. But I chose to look at the microbes that live in the poop in our guts.
Microbiologist Emma Allen Vercoe is studying our inner rainforest at Guelph University.
So it's not a very glamorous job.
It may not be glamorous, but this is one of the most unique biolabs in the world. Welcome to RoboGut. It's an artificial intestine, basically a poop machine.
We've set up what we call a life support system for the microbes that live in your gut. So we've just emulated the same conditions that you have in your lower part of your intestine. We'll start off with material from a human donor. That would be poop. And then we'll start feeding the microbes food at about the same rate that food will reach your colon. We're looking to see what are those microbes going to do in response to being fed that food. Are they going to change? Are they going to start talking to each other in different ways?
She's been eavesdropping on microbial conversations for years. They communicate in a chemical language, directing the way they and we behave.
I like to call myself a speaker for the microbes because I don't feel like the microbes have a voice right now. And that upsets me because they do so much work for us. And so if they could talk, what would they say?
Some might brag about how they keep us lean by helping us extract calories and burn them off. Kind of like our own personal weight coaches.
Other microbes are having a very, very important role in training our immune system to understand who's a threat and who's not a threat. So it's a sort of like the police force.
It sounds simple enough. To keep weight off, we need to figure out how to keep the good guys and get rid of the bad guys. But
it's getting more complex the more we study it. There are definitely good guys and bad guys. The problem is, can you pick them in a crowded bar? And we can pick a few of them that have the black hats and the eye shades, and these are the ones that cause toxins. Some of the others, it's harder to tell who's a hero and who's a villain, because in different situations they might work very differently.
that's because in order to survive, microbes need to exist within a community. And just like us, they often succumb to peer pressure.
Think of them as teenagers. You know, a teenager on his or her own is a kind of a grumpy thing. And they don't really interact very much with their environment. But you put the teenagers together in a party situation and they're having an amazing time, and they, you know, you have to get them to talk. You don't have to try, they just do it on their own.
If you get the community right, even the bad guy will join the good guys because everyone's working together and it's really the only way to go. If you have a very patchy community, the bad guys can start to run wild, then anything can happen.
Luckily, we do have one weapon to battle those bad guys: our diet.
Our microbes need to eat. We all know that starving an army is not a good way to fight a war.
It doesn't take a lot of bows and arrows to kill an agave.
That's a good one.
The agave plants Jeff Leach is cooking in the desert are more than just an ancient snack. They're a meal fit for his microbes.
This is good. Sweet. By experimenting on myself, I can see how dietary inputs affect my own microbiome.
So how does our everyday diet trigger a gut reaction?
Like garlic, these are all peppers and onions.
Over the last few years, scientist Tim Spector has been conducting an experiment
You can never have too much olive oil.
on himself.
Here we go, some more tomatoes. My dad had dropped dead at the age of 57, and so that was one of the reasons that I really had a closer look at exactly what I was eating and doing in my life.
Name a diet, he's tried it.
Put some more basil, yeah, shall I go?
And so have his gut bacteria.
Our microbes are getting restless. You never eat alone because whatever food you put in, you're feeding trillions of your microbes inside your gut. And the latest evidence is showing they're absolutely crucial in what makes someone lean or obese. I've realized that certain things can change my microbes. I was 10 kilos more than I am now, and this was all part of this learning exercise as I was trying out what was good for me, what was bad for me.
What's bad for him may be even worse for someone else. That's because each of us has our own individual microbiome, as unique as a fingerprint. And certain foods are a recipe for disaster when it comes to our gut bugs and our girth.
Increasingly, a third of people depend on junk foods for virtually every meal, and our microbes are suffering. When it came to testing junk food, I knew someone who was even more of an expert. He's a student, and what better treat than to go on a non-stop junk food diet to test his microbiome.
The guinea pig, Tim's son, Tom.
He was a very happy guinea pig, at least initially.
I didn't know what I was really in for.
It was a mini version of the popular film Super Size Me. 10 days of nothing but burgers and fries washed down with a Coke.
He was allowed a treat of chicken McNuggets. The idea was to recreate Super Size Me with the microbiome on a slightly smaller scale, realizing that I also didn't want to kill my son and he didn't want to die.
But would Tom's microbes survive? Fast food may be a feast for his upper intestine where it gets digested, but it leads to famine down below where the gut bugs are waiting to be fed.
If we're eating a lot of processed food, that food is not going to actually make it through to the gut, to the colon, where the vast majority of the beneficial microbes are living. And so you're essentially starving them.
Since processed food is full of carbohydrates and sugars that are easy for your upper intestine to absorb, they go straight into your bloodstream, while the microbes in your lower intestine end up skipping a meal.
Microbes that are starved get cranky, just like kids that are starved get cranky, and they start to behave badly, and that's really what we don't want. So you need to help them by feeding them, putting in proper types of food.
If it's working according to nature's plan, our digestive tract is a two-way street, benefiting us and our microbes.
We give them a nice warm place to live, and in return, they provide the metabolism, they provide our vitamins, our nutrition, and how we get all our energy. And it's a perfect match if we didn't start messing it up with modern life.
With improved Finax, you consistently deep fry foods to a high standard of quality.
When processed food first appeared, it was like manna from heaven. Products that would last longer, taste better, and cost less than ever before.
Processed food essentially has just a small number of ingredients: corn, soy, fat, and meat, usually with a bit of added sugar.
Sprinkle in some preservatives and additives, and the result is a treat for our taste buds. But more than half a century later, our guts are still paying the price.
In fact, it ended up a bit like a nuclear bomb, and we're still suffering the fallout effects. I remember when I was a kid at school, there would be one fat kid in a class of 30. Now, if you go to any school, you'll find at least 10. So these are dramatic changes that have happened within a couple of generations. Junk food is something that our bodies are really struggling ever to get control of, and I'm not sure they ever will.
By day 4 of the experiment, I described it as almost being hungover after every meal because I think my body was almost quite sick of it.
What shocked me when he said, "Dad, I'm really starting to crave having a salad now."
The favorite food of the microbes that live in the colon, generally speaking, are the stuff that gets in your teeth when you chew it.
Foods with indigestible fibers, everything from artichokes to zucchini, nourish bacteria. They're called prebiotics.
Studies show that when you give these prebiotics, then the microbes become more diverse. It's suddenly like sprinkling this fertilizer on soil. All these new plants come up that are varied and different.
So can we prevent our inner ecosystem from becoming a virtual desert? To anthropologist Jeff Leach, who is researching how diet affects our microbes, it comes down to the choices we make in our everyday lives.
When I first moved out here, the local grocery store, which is in the middle of nowhere, they didn't carry leeks. This leek is full of the F word, fiber. So this would be my #1 choice if I got stranded in this grocery store and wanted to improve my microbiome. You hear people complain endlessly that they can't get enough fiber in their diet. I call bull. They're just not choosing the right foods. Lentils are a great choice for fiber. Just 1 cup contains 60 grams of fiber, approximately 4 times as much as the average North American eats in a day. If I had to pick one thing that's changed most dramatically in the human diet, it's not our increase in fat, it's not our increase in sugar. Our biggest shift in diet has been our breathtaking drop in dietary fiber. Over the last 2 years, I've gone on an extraordinary amount of diets. I've gone on the paleo diet, Mediterranean diet. I've even gone on hunter-gatherer diets, and each one has a differing effect on my microbiome. It's just a sample size of one, but what I did learn is how I can shrink and swell diversity.
So how does an anthropologist end up working with some of the world's top microbiologists?
My daughter, who's 15 now, was diagnosed when she was 2 years old with type 1 diabetes. And as a parent, you're completely devastated, but as a researcher, the question is why? So I started to research and try to understand her disease, which led me to microbes.
Since then, scientists have begun to understand the link between gut-friendly fiber and our metabolism. In this Agriculture Canada lab, Krista Power is testing the microbial value of food, including chickpeas grown in our own backyard.
The theory is that we can shift the microbiome by the chickpeas in order to reduce obesity.
Professor Power has cooked up a recipe that mimics what happens to the chickpeas once we swallow them.
We remove the components that would be absorbed, and then it continues as if you're following it through the digestive tract to get what the colon sees after you consume the food. And that's what we're exposing into Emma's RoboGut system.
Down the road at the University of Guelph, Emma Ellen Verco is serving RoboGut its dinner.
So this is where we put the chickpea mixture, and these are the microbes. So this is what is going on in your colon. It's being stirred just in the same way that the microbes in your gut are very slowly being churned. And we're looking at this chemical concoction at the end to see if there's a difference in the way that the microbes from an obese person might process food from a lean person. Yeah.
For Emma, the research isn't just professional, it's personal.
The issue of obesity in the gut microbiota is kind of close to my heart. And being a researcher in this area, I've looked at my own gut microbiota, and I know that it's not very diverse. It's not as diverse as it should be. My motto is that my microbes made me do it.
In fact, Emma's microbes may have a mind of their own.
Now we know that the microbes in the gut actually speak to the brain, our brains, through all sorts of pathways that we never even realized existed.
Researchers believe our bacteria send us chemical messages via the vagus nerve, which connects our digestive system to the base of the brain.
It's like a phone line between the brain and the gut. And we know that gut bacteria can secrete neurotransmitters. So the amazing implication of that is that the bacteria in our gut can affect our food cravings, or they could affect how hungry we feel, pulling on the strings of our behavior.
If we give in to those cravings and reach for pastries instead of veggies, our microbes still go hungry.
Because there's nothing for them to feed off, then you get a general inflammatory state in the body, and many people believe that is one of the major causes of obesity.
But there may be a way to fight back by eating something as simple as chickpeas. Scientists like Krista Power are exploring a novel idea. If they add fiber to a high-fat diet, it might control weight gain.
There's a group of mice who are on a high-fat diet and a high-fat diet supplemented with chickpeas. And then we can see if we're getting weight loss as well as looking at the impacts on the gut microbiota. Our study is not finished yet, but we can clearly see the mice that are consuming these chickpea or bean diets actually have a shift in the microbiome.
In Texas, Jeff Leach is testing his own high-fiber diet.
So tonight we're going to cook over an open flame some of the leeks that we bought today in the store. And we're going to eat the entire leek, which most people don't do. They chop that crunchy or that cellulose part off, and all that'll end up in your colon as food for your microbes.
But man and microbe can't live on leeks alone.
They're cooked perfectly, by the way.
So Jeff makes sure he's got a variety of gut-friendly food on his plate. Quite a contrast to Tom Spector's junk food feast.
By day 10 of the experiment, I didn't sleep very well, and a lot of my friends also noticed that I was quite pale and yellow in color, and they were like, are you sure you should be carrying on with this? And I was like, oh, well, I've got to do it for science.
It was time to put Tom's gut to the test.
The changes was really dramatic.
The whole colony of the entire gut microbiome really did take a significant hit.
His diversity had plummeted. The number of species he had gone way down from 6,000 to about 3,500. So nearly half had been wiped out.
I just think, my poor microbes, do they deserve better?
It took more than 2 weeks of a fiber-filled diet for Tom's microbes to bounce back.
The final lesson for me is that I am now a lot more conscious about how much effect these junk food diets really have on my microbiome.
So to restore our vanishing microbes, can we learn from an ancient way of life? Tanzania, home to the Hadza tribe. Anthropologist Jeff Leach has come to this remote bush area looking for clues to the world inside our guts.
The Hadza are one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer groups in all of Africa, and they're specifically interesting because they still live a lifestyle that humans live for possibly millions of years. They have their hands in the guts of animals, they're up in trees, they're still in that environment, and that's microbial ground zero, if we're correct, where humans evolved.
The Hadza are almost universally thin. After testing their microbes, Leach and his team have made an important discovery.
Preliminary analysis suggests that the Hadza have one of the most diverse gut ecosystems in the world, nearly twice as many microbes as your average Westerner. One of the things striking is the extraordinary amount of dietary fiber that they eat.
Leach had a gut feeling that eating the same diet might transform his own microbiome.
I'll drink the water that they drink, whether it has baboon feces floating in it or not. I'll eat their food, and I collect my samples, my stool samples, right along with the Hadza as well. And I see dramatic shifts in my microbes.
But then he decided to go even further and do a fecal transplant, inserting a stool specimen donated by a hunter-gatherer.
We had an individual that we knew a lot about. We had him multiply tested for HIV, hepatitis, all these other things. Did he carry an optimal set of microbes? I have no idea. I was just more interested in the diversity. Before I did the fecal transplant, I asked lots of colleagues of their opinion of it, and hands down, every single one of them advised against it. And I took it all under consideration. I did it anyway. So I had some researchers that were visiting us in the field bring me a turkey baster from Walmart.
We brought Jeff a turkey baster because he asked us for it. I told him I didn't think he should do it because I like Jeff and I wanted him to be around for a long time. And he was plunging off into the unknown.
You know, I'll let the viewer figure out how the process works.
It's rather hard to exchange your gut flora without involving, for want of a better word, exchange of poop. So that's exactly what he did, and with the help of a turkey baster, ended up standing on his head for a few hours to see if things worked.
I won't be using any turkey basters anytime soon. His idea was that population is a healthier population because hunter-gatherers have a lifestyle and a diet that's more reflective of the way humans originally evolved. And it's a nice idea, but I also think it's overly romantic. We don't really understand yet what a healthy microbiome looks like.
It wasn't some kind of navel-gazing experiment. What it was could I acquire the diversity of this particular man's gut ecosystem? Could I acquire it? And second, could I destroy it?
Most of us were too amazed to actually contemplate doing this ourselves, and we're all waiting eagerly to see what Jeff's experiments come up with.
Diet isn't the only difference when it comes to the Hadza and gut diversity. They're rarely exposed to antibiotics, unlike us.
Our microbiome is under assault, and we're seeing a lot of consequences.
Martin Blaser was one of the first scientists to raise the alarm about how antibiotics affect our gut microbes and our weight.
Can I take a look? Of course. One day, a light bulb went off. I thought, wow, if farmers are feeding antibiotics to fatten up their farm animals, could all the antibiotics we're giving to our children be fattening them up? Let me be clear. Antibiotics are miraculous drugs for very sick people who have bacterial infections. However, most people who get antibiotics, like kids with ear infections, those are mostly due to viruses. We've estimated that the average American child is getting nearly 3 courses of antibiotics by the time they're 2, and 10 courses by the time they're 10, and 17 courses by the time they're 20.
Blaser believes antibiotics act as a kind of carpet bomb that wipes out all kinds of bacteria, along with the intended target. Every time we take our medicine, a few more species risk going extinct.
And now there are epidemiologic studies in kids showing that early exposure to antibiotics increases the chance that they'll become fat later.
A Canadian study has found that babies treated with antibiotics before their first birthday are twice as likely to become overweight by age 12. Those results aren't surprising to Emma Ellen Vercoe.
I've always struggled with my weight. But if I think back into my childhood, really my problems began after I started taking antibiotics in my teenage years because I had acne. I am very mindful of the fact that I need to feed the bugs in my colon, so I eat a lot of healthy foods. I don't put on weight, but I don't lose it easily either.
Oh, hi, how are you?
It's much easier to develop a healthy microbiome if you start at the very beginning.
So most recently, you had mango, so like that, mango, and you had asparagus.
In addition to diet and antibiotics, there's another surprising factor that could impact obesity: how we enter the world.
You like it?
At New York University, Maria Gloria Dominguez Bello is tracking the health and the bacteria of babies like 6-month-old Nathaniel.
There we go. Good job.
She's comparing babies born vaginally to those born by cesarean section.
We want to see if there are bacteria that are never acquired by the baby.
In the womb, babies are, for the most part, microbe-free. But once they head towards the birth canal, they are bathed in mom's bacteria. Bacteria that can be crucial to their developing immune systems.
And babies that are born by C-section get skin bacteria, we think, from the air of the operating room. From the doctors, nurses, who knows? The differences are dramatic at birth.
Those differences could impact gut health later in life. A British study suggests that children born by C-section have a 22% greater chance of becoming obese adults.
Wow, what is this?
In the next phase of research, Dr. Dominguez Bello will find out whether wiping C-section babies with the mom's microbes can help.
So we are swabbing babies at birth with a gauze that contains the maternal vaginal bacteria.
One U.S. family didn't want to wait for any scientific studies.
What we did with our own kid was coated her with the kinds of microbes that she would have had anyway had she been delivered the regular way rather than by unplanned C-section.
Rob Knight was acting as a parent, not a scientist, but he's one of the world's leading experts on microbes. He's been testing his own skin, mouth, and stool every day for the last 6 years, and has taken samples from the whole family, including his daughter, whose diapers never made it to the trash.
We essentially have all her diapers in the freezer.
He's even tested the family dog. Research suggests exposure to pets and digging in the dirt all contribute to a diverse gut microbiome.
We'll let the dog lick her, we'll let her lick the dog. All of that kind of play is probably beneficial.
Professor Knight's gut samples are among thousands being tested in his San Diego lab, headquarters of American Gut. It's a crowdsourcing project, mapping and comparing microbes from the US and around the world.
What we're learning about the microbiome really is mind-blowing. So the challenge now is to figure out the best ways to change them.
Will changing our microbes be the weight loss remedy of the future?
Does anybody know how many calories you guys are burning per minute just sitting there? Wild guess, come on. It's 1 calorie per minute.
Whenever Dr. Arya Sharma hits the lecture circuit to talk about our massive weight problem,
How many can you eat in a minute?
it's usually to a sold-out crowd.
What, 2,000, 3,000?
He has a way of making fat funny, but his message is serious.
The sad truth is that once you put on the weight, we don't have a lot of effective treatments. It's all part of the problem. We don't have the magic pill for obesity. There's no question about that. And maybe part of why we don't have the magic pill is because we haven't quite been looking in the right direction. This area of research, now where you're looking at gut bugs, could potentially lead us to treatments that we haven't even dreamt of yet.
People always want quick fixes, but it's very unlikely that you're just going to be able to swallow a pill containing bacteria and suddenly magically become thin. To manipulate the microbiome, it really will take personalized medicine, but there's a huge amount of potential here to make a difference to people's lives.
So far, the only proven treatment for morbid obesity has been bariatric surgery. Adriana O'Regan used to be at least 45 kilos heavier until she went under the knife.
They created a new stomach and they bypass my old stomach. And it restricts the amount of food you can eat.
The question is, has bariatric surgery worked because it has changed your gut bacteria?
The conventional thinking is that surgery works by forcing patients to eat less or by changing the way they absorb calories.
Now, the surgeons have learned that bariatric surgery is not that simple.
People are starting to do these large experiments before and after the surgery and seeing these amazing changes in the microbes. If you can find other milder ways of doing the same thing non-surgically, we'd have the answer to most people's obesity problems.
Tim Spector is finding other intriguing new hints about how to influence our gut flora by studying those who are skinny. Alana and Lisa McFarlane, known as the Mac twins, have stayed thin in spite of their childhood menu.
Well, the Mac twins had a dreadful diet in Scotland.
We used to have deep-fried pizza, deep-fried chips, and a Greg's like white soft roll, and then a Yum Yum for lunch every single day. I don't know how we weren't huge.
So we'll do your weight quickly, if that's all right. Just hop on there for me, please.
It's a bit of a microbe mystery.
We'll do yours now.
How did they manage to live on junk food and stay slim?
So you're about 3 kilograms lighter than your sister.
It's what's inside that counts, actually, everyone.
So what I'm going to do...
What's inside their guts is the focus of Professor Spector's latest research.
Thank you.
He and colleagues at Cornell University have discovered a previously unknown bacterium.
We did find actually a good guy.
Wonderful.
This was a microbe called Christensenella, which actually, when you put it into a mouse, it makes it thinner. Even when you give it lots of fat and junk food, it'll stay thin. To our microbes. May they enjoy our...
He doesn't pretend to have the secret to winning the fight against fat. But after poring over hundreds of research studies and testing different menus on himself, he firmly believes that microbes are the reason why diets simply don't work.
Everyone has been promoting the low-fat diet as the only way forward, and yet that's consistently failed. So we're turning everything on its head, and suddenly we're understanding why it is, and that is due to our friends, the microbes.
Better than the junk food.
Professor Spector now follows a gut-friendly diet, cutting out processed food, avoiding antibiotic-fed meat, and eating vegetables and fruits rich in prebiotic fiber. He also relishes unpasteurized cheese and yogurt that contain live bacteria called probiotics, even if they're high in fat.
But it gives you the biggest variety of microbes you can get. I'm much more adventurous an eater now, and I have 20 or 30 different types of food every week, and I think this has proved to be very beneficial to my health.
Perhaps, with new science to back him up, he's simply learned to trust his gut.
Next time on The Nature of Things.
They're about as likely as a unicorn.
There's all sorts of things that we just don't really understand.
See what new technologies are revealing.
This is the first time we've ever done something like this.
Giraffes, the forgotten giants, on The Nature of Things. Next Thursday on CBC. Next time on the new CBC doc series, First Hand.
America's gone wild.
Colorado, ground zero for legalized pot.
We have chocolate, gummy candies.
$35 out the door.
And how Canadian entrepreneurs plan to cash in on reefer riches. Next on First Hand.